The Vargan Dominion was feared across the known galaxy. They had conquered 17 star systems in just 100 years. Their massive warships had weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. Their shields could withstand direct hits from asteroids. No one had ever successfully fought back against them. Admiral Krek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable victory. He was tall, with gray skin that looked like stone, and 4 arms that ended in clawed hands. His yellow eyes watched the main screen as his fleet approached a small blue-green planet on the edge of unexplored space. "What do we know about this world, Science Officer?" Krex asked. Science Officer Mal tapped on her control panel. Her thin fingers moved quickly across the glowing surface. "It is called Earth by its inhabitants. They call themselves humans. Their technology is primitive. They have only recently achieved travel to their own moon and nearby planets. They have no energy shields. They still use projectile weapons and chemical explosives." Krex made a clicking sound that served as laughter for his species. Another easy conquest for the glory of the Dominion. "Send the standard message. They have 1 planetary rotation to surrender or face extinction." On Earth, at NASA's Deep Space Communications Center in Houston, a young scientist named Samantha Miller stared at her computer screen in disbelief. The message had come in through the Deep Space Monitoring Array, a clear signal in an unknown language. But the computer translation program had worked quickly, and now the words on her screen made her blood run cold. "To the inhabitants of the UI, planet designated Earth, you are now within the territory claimed by the Vargan Dominion. You have 1 planetary rotation to surrender your world and submit to Vargan rule. Resistance will result in the elimination of your species." Samantha's hand shook as she reached for her phone. She called her boss, Dr. Alan Wright, who immediately informed the president. Within 3 hours, an emergency United Nations Security Council meeting was called in New York. Samantha sat in the back of the room, watching as world leaders tried to make sense of what was happening. The Secretary General, a normally calm and collected woman, looked pale as she addressed the representatives. "Ladies and gentlemen, 6 hours ago we received a message from an alien fleet now in orbit around our planet. They are giving us 24 hours to surrender Earth to their control." The room erupted in shouting and questions. The Secretary General raised her hands for silence. "We have visual confirmation from our space telescopes. There are at least 15 large vessels in orbit. Our scientists estimate each one is approximately the size of Manhattan." A man in a military uniform stood up. This was Colonel John Russell of the newly formed Space Defense Force. "Madam Secretary, we have nothing that can touch their ships. From what we can tell, their technology is centuries beyond ours. Our most powerful missiles would be like throwing stones at a tank." Ambassador Elizabeth Perry, a woman with 30 years of diplomatic experience, spoke next. "Then we must negotiate, find out what they want, see if there's room for peaceful coexistence." "They seem pretty clear about what they want," said the representative from Russia. "Our complete surrender." Samantha Miller, who had been asked to attend due to her role in receiving the message, finally spoke up. "There's something we should consider. These aliens, the Vargans, they clearly have superior technology, but they know nothing about us, about human history or psychology." All eyes turned to her, and Samantha swallowed hard before continuing. "Throughout our history, humans have never been good at surrendering. We fight back, even when the odds are impossible, and we're incredibly adaptable. Maybe that's something they don't understand." The Chinese representative nodded slowly. "Dr. Miller has a point. Perhaps our greatest weapon is that they underestimate us." Colonel Russell sat down next to Samantha after the meeting ended. "Teams were already being assembled to analyze the alien ships, to look for any weakness that might be exploited." "That was good thinking in there," he said. "Got me wondering, what if we request a face-to-face meeting? Learn more about them, buy ourselves some time?" "Do you think they'd agree to that?" Samantha asked. "Worth a try. Most conquerors are arrogant. They might be curious enough to agree." The request was sent, and to everyone's surprise, the Vargan admiral agreed to meet with human representatives aboard his ship. A delegation was quickly formed, Ambassador Perry would lead, with Dr. Miller, Colonel Russell, and a historian named Dr. Peter Garcia accompanying her. They were transported up to the alien flagship in one of their small craft, a journey that took less than 5 minutes. Samantha's heart pounded as they were escorted through the massive vessel. The corridors were tall and wide, with strange symbols etched into the metallic walls. Armed guards walked beside them, each carrying weapons that hummed with energy. They reached what appeared to be the command center, a vast room with viewing screens showing Earth from orbit. Admiral Krex sat on an elevated platform, looking down at the human delegation with what seemed to be amusement. "You have come to discuss terms of surrender?" Krex asked through a translation device worn by one of his officers. Ambassador Perry stepped forward, her back straight, and her voice steady. "We've come to warn you." The Vargan officers made that clicking sound that Samantha now recognized as laughter. It echoed through the large chamber, making her skin crawl. "Warn us?" Admiral Krex leaned forward. "You have no weapons that can harm our vessels. Your most advanced technology is like toys to us." "That's true," Dr. Garcia spoke up. "But you should know something about humans before you start this war. Throughout our history, we've fought each other constantly. We've developed warfare to an art form. We've gone from fighting with spears to creating nuclear weapons in less than 10,000 years. Colonel Russell stepped forward. "More importantly, we've never united as a species until now. You've managed to do what nothing else could, give humanity a common enemy." "And humans," added Samantha, finding courage in the moment, "are at their most dangerous when cornered." Admiral Krex stood to his full height, nearly 9 feet tall. "Your bravery is noted but misplaced. We have conquered species far more advanced than yours. This meeting is over. You have 16 hours remaining to surrender." As they were escorted back to the transport vessel, Samantha whispered to Colonel Russell, "They're not going to change their minds, are they?" Russell shook his head. "No, but we've learned something important." "What's that?" "They're arrogant. They think this is going to be easy." He looked out a viewport at Earth growing larger as they descended. "And that might be the only advantage we need." When they returned to Earth, the real work began. 16 hours wasn't much time, but it was something. Around the world, military forces went on high alert. Scientists began analyzing every bit of data they could gather about the alien ships. And ordinary people, upon learning the truth, began preparing for a fight that would determine the fate of their entire species. The clock was ticking. But humanity wasn't going to surrender without showing the Vargans exactly why picking a fight with humans was the biggest mistake they had ever made. The 16 hours passed quickly. Around the world, humans prepared as best they could. Military bases went into lockdown. Civilians were moved to underground shelters where possible. Scientists worked without sleep, analyzing every scrap of data they had on the Vargan ships. Admiral Krex watched the deadline pass from the bridge of the inevitable victory. The humans had not sent a surrender message. He wasn't surprised. Most species resisted at first until they understood the true power of the Vargan Dominion. "They have ignored our ultimatum," Krex announced to his officers. "Begin the first phase of the attack. Target their military installations and power generation facilities." Across Earth, the first strikes came without warning. Beams of intense energy cut through the atmosphere, leaving trails of superheated air. Military bases, power plants, and communication centers were hit first. Millions died in the first hour of the attack. In a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Colonel Russell and Dr. Miller watched the disaster unfold on satellite feeds. The facility shook as a Vargan beam struck somewhere in the mountains above them. "How bad is it?" Samantha asked, her voice trembling. Colonel Russell's face was grim. "Bad, but not as bad as it could be. We managed to evacuate many key areas, and we've dispersed our remaining military assets." The door to the command center opened, and a group of people rushed in. Leading them was General Laura Hayes, the highest-ranking military officer to make it to the bunker. "Status report," she demanded, moving to stand beside Russell at the main display. "We've lost approximately 40% of our military capability," Russell reported. Communication networks are damaged but still functioning on backup systems. Most major cities have been hit. The general nodded, taking in the information without showing emotion. And the plan? Ready to implement, ma'am, Russell said. The pilots are standing by. General Hayes looked around the room at the gathered scientists, military personnel, and government officials. Then let's not waste any more time. Launch Operation Mosquito. At hidden bases around the world, pilots climbed into spacecraft that few people even knew existed. These were not the space shuttles or rockets that the public was familiar with. They were experimental craft, built in secret over the past decade, designed for rapid orbital insertion and maneuverability. Lieutenant Lisa Kim was one of those pilots. Her craft was small, barely larger than a fighter jet, with a sleek design optimized for speed. As she went through her pre-launch checklist, she tried not to think about the fact that no human had ever engaged in combat in space before. All systems go, she reported through her comlink. Ready for launch. You are cleared for launch, Lieutenant, came the response from the underground command center. Remember, your mission is reconnaissance only. Get close enough to gather data on their shield configurations, then get out. Do not engage. Understood, Kim replied, though part of her wanted nothing more than to strike back at the aliens who were attacking her world. The launch was smooth, the experimental engines pushing her craft out of the atmosphere in minutes rather than hours. Soon, Earth was a blue ball beneath her, and ahead she could see the massive shapes of the Vargan fleet. I have visual on the target, she reported, moving to commence scanning. Kim's craft darted forward, its small size and low energy signature, making it difficult for the Vargans to detect. She approached one of the smaller vessels, what appeared to be a support ship, rather than a main warship. On the bridge of the inevitable Victory, a junior officer approached Admiral Krex. Sir, we're detecting small objects moving from the planet's surface. They're primitive spacecraft? Krex asked, not particularly concerned. Yes, sir, but they're faster than our intelligence suggested they should be. The Admiral waved a dismissive hand. It doesn't matter. They have no weapons that can penetrate our shields. Continue with the attack pattern. Lieutenant Kim's heart pounded as she drew closer to the alien vessel. Her sensors were recording everything: energy output, shield frequencies, hull composition. This data would be crucial if humans were to have any chance of fighting back. I'm nearly in position, she reported. Beginning detailed scan now. Just then her warning systems blared. One of the Vargan ships had detected her and was powering up a weapon. Taking evasive action, Kim called out, banking her craft sharply away from the enemy vessel. The energy beam missed her by meters, superheating the space where she had been moments before. Kim pushed her engines to maximum, diving back toward Earth's atmosphere. I've been spotted, she reported, but I got the data. Transmitting now. In the underground command center, the information began flowing in. Dr. Harry Nelson, a physicist who had been developing experimental quantum field theories, was among those analyzing it. Look at this, he said to Dr. Miller, pointing at a pattern in the data. Their shields operate on predictable frequency patterns. There's a millisecond vulnerability during each cycle. Can we exploit that? Samantha asked. Nelson nodded slowly, his mind already racing ahead. Maybe. It would require precise timing and a weapon specifically designed to take advantage of this vulnerability. But it's possible. General Hayes overheard their conversation. How long would it take to develop such a weapon? Nelson looked uncertain. Under normal circumstances? Years. But given what we're facing, he glanced at the screen showing the ongoing destruction around the world. We'll have something in weeks, days if possible. Make it happen, Hayes ordered. In the meantime, we need to buy time. Colonel Russell stepped forward. I have an idea about that, General. The Vargans think they're facing a primitive species. Let's let them keep thinking that. In orbit, the Vargan fleet continued their methodical destruction of Earth's infrastructure. Admiral Krex was pleased with their progress. The humans were putting up some resistance, launching missiles and primitive energy weapons at his ships. but nothing came close to penetrating their shields. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "we're detecting unusual radiation signatures from several locations on the planet." "What kind of radiation?" Krex asked. "Unknown, sir. It doesn't match any known human technology in our database." For the first time, Admiral Krex felt a flicker of concern. "Monitor those locations. If they show any signs of becoming a threat, target them immediately." On Earth and hidden facilities around the world, humans were already adapting. The data from Lieutenant Kim's mission was being shared with scientists and engineers globally. Traditional rivals like the United States, China, and Russia were now working together, pooling resources and knowledge. In one such facility, buried deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Nelson and his team worked around the clock to develop a weapon that could exploit the weakness in the Vargan shields. "It's working," Nelson said as they tested a prototype on a piece of Vargan technology, recovered from a small scout ship that had been shot down. "But we need to get closer to their ships for it to be effective, and the window of opportunity is tiny." Samantha Miller, who had joined Nelson's team, looked at the prototype weapon. "Then we need better delivery systems, and pilots who can get close enough to use them." The human resistance was growing. Despite the devastation on the surface, people rallied together. Those with military training formed guerrilla units to harass Vargan ground forces that had begun to land in some areas. Engineers repurposed civilian technology for defense. Scientists shared breakthroughs instantly around the globe. "Admiral," Krex was beginning to realize that this conquest might take longer than he had anticipated. The humans were proving to be surprisingly resilient. "These humans," he said to his second-in-command, "they fight differently than other species we've encountered." "They are still no match for us," his officer replied confidently. "Perhaps," Krex said, watching as another small human craft was destroyed trying to approach his fleet. "But they learn quickly. We should be cautious." The Admiral didn't know it yet, but he had picked a fight with the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they were just getting started. 1 month had passed since the Vargan attack began. Earth was badly damaged but not defeated. Cities lay in ruins, but the human spirit remained unbroken. In fact, the shared threat had united humanity in a way nothing else ever had. Old enemies now worked side by side, focused on a single goal: survival. In the underwater facility where Dr. Nelson and his team worked, progress was being made. They had moved beyond the prototype stage and were now producing the shield-disrupting weapons in small numbers. "The frequency modulator is stable," Dr. Nelson told Samantha as they examined their latest version. "We can now create a 3-second window in their shields." 3 seconds is enough," Samantha replied. She had changed in the past month. The fear in her eyes had been replaced by determination. "If our pilots are good enough." And they were getting good. Around the world, the best pilots trained in simulators designed to mimic Vargan ships based on the data they had gathered. They practiced approaching, targeting the shield vulnerability, and delivering their payload in that brief window of opportunity. Admiral Krex was growing frustrated. The conquest of Earth was taking far longer than planned. The Supreme Commander of the Vargan Dominion had expected weekly progress reports detailing the surrender of major human territories. Instead, Krex had to report continued resistance. "These humans are proving difficult," he told his officers during a strategy meeting. "They adapt quickly to our tactics." "They are learning from each engagement," his tactical officer agreed, "and they seem to be developing new technologies at an alarming rate." Krex clicked his mandibles in irritation. Impossible. They were a primitive species just beginning space travel. They cannot advance centuries of technology in weeks. "Evidence suggests otherwise, Admiral," the science officer said cautiously. "We've detected energy signatures that weren't present when we arrived, and their attack patterns are becoming more coordinated, more effective." On Earth, Major Frank Carter led a team of pilots who had been selected for the first real counterattack against the Vargan fleet. They called themselves the Mosquito Squad, named after the operation that had discovered the shield vulnerability. "Remember," Carter told his team during their final briefing, "we only get one shot at this. If we fail, they'll adapt and fix the vulnerability we found. The pilots nodded, their faces serious. Among them was Lieutenant Kim, who had volunteered immediately for this mission. Our target is one of their smaller vessels, Carter continued, pointing to a holographic display of a Vargan ship. Intelligence believes it's a supply ship, less heavily armed and armored than their warships. And if we succeed? Asked one of the pilots. Then we prove this can work, Carter replied, and we start taking the fight to them. The plan called for a coordinated approach from multiple directions. The Vargan ships had proven effective at tracking and destroying single targets, but they struggled when faced with multiple small craft attacking simultaneously. As the pilots prepared for launch, Samantha approached Lieutenant Kim. "Be careful. Up there," she said. "We need you to come back. Your data from the first mission has been invaluable." Kim smiled tightly as she checked her flight suit. "I'll do my best. But even if I don't make it back, what matters is showing these aliens that they picked the wrong planet to attack." The launch was timed to coincide with a moment when the target ship would be relatively isolated from the main Vargan fleet. 6 small craft shot into the sky from different locations around the globe, their experimental engines pushing them quickly into orbit. In the command center, General Hayes watched their progress on the main display. "Status report," she demanded. "All craft successfully launched," reported Colonel Russell. "Enemy does not appear to have detected them yet." On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Krex was reviewing reports when an alert sounded. "What is it?" he asked. "Multiple small craft detected," his sensor officer reported. "They appear to be on an intercept course with the supply vessel, Constant Provider." "Another futile attack," Krex said dismissively. "They cannot penetrate our shields." "Should we warn the Constant Provider?" asked his second-in-command. Krex considered for a moment. "No. Let them handle it. Their commander should be capable of dealing with primitive human weapons." Major Carter led his team toward the target, their small craft flying in an unpredictable pattern to make them harder to track. "Approaching target," he reported back to Earth. "No reaction from the enemy yet. They don't see us as a threat." "Stay on course," came the response from General Hayes. "You are cleared to engage." The human vessels spread out, each approaching the Vargan supply ship from a different angle. Finally, when they were within range, the alien vessel's defenses activated. Energy weapons began firing, but the human pilots had trained for this. They weaved and dodged, continuing their approach. "Weapons hot," Carter called out to his team. "Remember your training. Target the shield frequency, fire only when you have a clean shot, and get out fast." Lieutenant Kim pushed her craft into a steep dive, coming at the Vargan ship from below. Her targeting system locked onto a specific point where the shield frequency was most vulnerable. "I have a lock," she reported, her finger hovering over the firing control. In the command center on Earth, everyone held their breath. This was the moment that would prove whether their new weapons could work against the Vargan shields. Kim fired. A pulse of energy, carefully calibrated to the exact frequency of the Vargan shields, struck the alien vessel. For a brief moment, a section of the shield flickered and failed. "Shield disruption successful," Kim called out. "I have a clear shot at the hull." She fired again, this time a conventional missile that passed through the gap in the shields and struck the Vargan ship directly. An explosion bloomed against the dark hull. "Direct hit," she reported, banking her craft away as the alien vessel's weapons tried to target her. The other pilots followed her example, each creating a brief window in the shields and delivering their payloads. Multiple explosions rocked the Vargan supply ship. Admiral Krex received the news with disbelief. "Impossible. They cannot have weapons capable of penetrating our shields." "The Constant Provider reports significant damage," his communications officer said. "Their shield generators have been compromised. They are requesting immediate assistance." 4. The first time, Krex felt real concern. "Send 2 warships to assist them, and I want a full analysis of what weapons the humans used." Back on Earth, the successful pilots returned to heroes' welcomes. Their mission had proven that the Vargan ships were not invincible. Humanity had a fighting chance. "This is just the beginning," General Hayes told the gathered military and scientific leaders. We've proven our weapons work. Now we need more of them, and we need to target larger vessels. Dr. Nelson nodded. We're already working on improvements. The next version will create a larger window in their shields, and we're finding ways to make the weapons smaller, more powerful. Samantha looked at the celebration around her, scientists and soldiers alike sharing a moment of hope in the midst of a desperate war. They thought this would be easy, she said. They thought we would surrender or be quickly defeated. They didn't know who they were dealing with, Colonel Russell replied. Humans have never been good at giving up. In orbit, Admiral Krex stared at the damaged supply ship on his view screen. His science officer had just delivered a preliminary report on the human weapons. They've somehow managed to identify the resonant frequency of our shield systems, the officer explained. Their weapons create a momentary disruption, allowing their conventional weapons to penetrate. How is this possible? Krex demanded. They shouldn't have the technology to even detect those frequencies, let alone exploit them. I cannot explain it, Admiral, but the evidence is clear. The humans are advancing their technology at an unprecedented rate. Krex turned away from the view screen, his mind racing. What he had thought would be a simple conquest was turning into something much more dangerous. The Supreme Commander would not be pleased. And for the first time, Krex began to wonder if the Vargan Dominion had made a grave mistake in attacking Earth. 3 months into the war, Earth looked very different. Cities had been rebuilt underground. Factories operated in mountain caverns and beneath the oceans. Humans had adapted to the new reality with remarkable speed. The success of the first counterattack had changed everything. It proved the Vargans could be hurt. Within weeks, more shield-disrupting weapons had been produced and more pilots trained to use them. Small victories began to add up. Admiral Krex paced the bridge of the inevitable victory, reviewing the latest losses. 3 smaller vessels destroyed, a medium cruiser badly damaged. The Supreme Commander was demanding explanations. How are they advancing so quickly? Krex asked his science officer. It should be impossible. We have a theory, Admiral, she replied cautiously. Most species we've encountered developed through relatively peaceful means. Their technologies evolved, slowly, over thousands of years. And the humans. Their history is different. They have been at war with each other constantly. Their technology has always developed fastest during conflicts. What might take another species centuries to discover, humans achieve in decades, when under threat. Krex stopped pacing. You're saying that by attacking them, we may have accelerated their development beyond anything we've seen before. On Earth, in a new command center built inside a hollowed-out mountain, General Hayes met with her top officers and scientists. The room was filled with maps and displays showing the positions of Vargan ships and Earth's growing defense network. The shield disruptor technology has been miniaturized, Dr. Nelson announced. We can now mount it on smaller missiles and drones. And we've recovered enough Vargan technology to begin reverse engineering their propulsion systems, added another scientist. Our new fighters will be twice as fast as the current ones. Major Carter, recently promoted after the successful first strike, looked at the display showing the orbiting Vargan fleet. We're doing damage, but we're still fighting defensively. When do we take the fight to them? General Hayes nodded. That's why we're here today. It's time for Operation Hornet's Nest. She pressed a button, and the main display changed to show a detailed image of a large Vargan vessel. This is one of their main battleships, the Relentless Conquest. Intelligence suggests it coordinates the actions of many smaller vessels. If we can take it out, we can disrupt their command structure. That's a big target, said Colonel Russell, heavily armed and shielded. Yes, Hayes agreed, which is why we're going to need a new approach. Dr. Miller stepped forward. She had been working with a team studying captured Vargan technology. We've developed something new, she said, a stealth system based on their own sensor technology. It won't make our ships invisible, but it will make them much harder to detect until they're very close. And we've improved the shield disruptors, added Dr. Nelson. The new version can create a stable window for up to 5 seconds, enough time to deliver a much larger payload. Major Carter studied the plans. This could work, but we'll need our best pilots, and even then it's a high-risk mission. Risk? I'll fly it, said Lieutenant Kim, who had become something of a legend since the first successful mission. Not alone, Carter replied. I'm going too. We'll need at least 6 craft to have a chance at taking down something that size. General. Hayes looked around the room. This is our chance to show the Vargans that attacking Earth was the biggest mistake they ever made. You have 3 days to prepare. Admiral Krex received a transmission from the Supreme Commander. The massive, holographic figure loomed over the bridge, mandibles clicking in obvious displeasure. Your progress is unacceptable, Admiral, the Supreme Commander said. The conquest of a primitive world should not take this long. Supreme Commander, these humans are unlike any species we have encountered before, Krex tried to explain. They adapt with extraordinary speed. Excuses, the Supreme Commander dismissed. You have 1 planetary cycle to show significant progress, or you will be replaced. The honor of the Dominion is at stake. As the transmission ended, Krex turned to his officers. Increase the attack intensity. Target their remaining population centers. We must break their will to resist. Sir, his tactical officer said hesitantly, we've tried that approach. It seems to only increase their determination. I don't care, Krex snapped. Those are our orders. The day of Operation Hornet's Nest arrived. 6 advanced fighters, equipped with the new stealth technology and improved shield disruptors, prepared for launch. Each carried a powerful warhead, designed specifically to damage Vargan ships based on the technology they had captured and studied. Lieutenant Kim went through her pre-flight checks with methodical precision. This would be the most dangerous mission yet, but also the most important. Major Carter's voice came through her comm system. All pilots, final briefing, he said. Our target is the relentless conquest. We approach using random vectors to avoid detection. Activate stealth systems once in orbit. Strike simultaneously at the designated shield junctions. Remember, we'll only have 1 shot at this. The launch was timed to coincide with a major Vargan attack on what they thought was a hidden human facility. In reality, it was a decoy, designed to draw attention away from the 6 fighters as they shot into space. On the bridge of the inevitable victory, Admiral Krex watched the attack on the human facility with satisfaction. Finally, we're making progress, he said to his second-in-command. This should be one of their major command centers. Sir, called his sensor officer suddenly, we're detecting unusual readings near the relentless conquest. What kind of readings? Krex demanded. Unclear, sir. They appeared briefly, then vanished. Possibly a sensor malfunction. Major Carter led his team toward the massive Vargan battleship. The stealth systems were working better than expected. They were within striking distance and still no reaction from the enemy. All craft maintain current course, Carter ordered. Prepare to disengage stealth on my mark. We'll have seconds to target and fire once they detect us. Lieutenant Kim checked her weapons systems one last time. Everything was ready. Her targeting computer had already identified the specific shield junction she would attack. In position, she reported. Ready to engage. All pilots report ready, Carter noted. 3, 2, 1, mark. Disengage stealth, target, and fire. 6 fighters suddenly appeared on Vargan sensors, much closer than should have been possible. Before the alien vessel could react, all 6 fired their shield disruptors simultaneously. The effect was more dramatic than anything they had achieved before. Large sections of the battleship's shields flickered and failed. Immediately, the pilots launched their warheads, each targeting a different critical system identified by Earth intelligence. On the bridge of the relentless conquest, alarms blared. Shields failing in multiple sectors, cried the defensive officer. Enemy weapons incoming! The captain barely had time to order evasive maneuvers before the warhead struck. Massive explosions ripped through the huge vessel's hull. Power systems failed. Weapons went offline. Direct hits on all targets, Kim reported, banking her fighter away from the wounded ship. Confirmed damage to propulsion, weapons, and command systems. On the inevitable victory, Admiral Krex watched in disbelief as one of his most powerful ships was crippled by 6 tiny human fighters. "Impossible," he whispered. His communications officer turned from his station, mandibles trembling. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the humans." "Put it through," Krex ordered. General Hayes's face appeared on the screen. "Admiral Krex," she said, her voice steady and confident. "Consider this a demonstration. We can now target any ship in your fleet. You have 24 hours to withdraw from Earth orbit, or we will destroy your entire fleet one ship at a time." As the transmission ended, Krex looked at his officers. For the first time, he saw fear in their eyes. The humans had done the impossible. They had taken technology centuries beyond their own, and not only understood it, but improved upon it in mere months. "Sir," his second-in-command asked quietly, "what are your orders?" Admiral Krex stared at the crippled battleship on his view screen. He had made a terrible miscalculation. They all had. "Prepare a transmission to the Supreme Commander," he said finally. "We may need to reconsider our approach to this planet." On Earth, the successful pilots returned to a hero's welcome. Their victory marked a turning point in the war. Humans were no longer merely defending their world, they were taking the fight to the enemy. 6 months after the Vargan fleet first appeared in Earth's orbit, the war had changed completely. Admiral Krex stood before the Supreme Commander on the Vargan homeworld, trying to explain the situation. "The humans have adapted to our technology at an unprecedented rate," Krex said. "They've not only learned to counter our weapons but have begun to improve upon them." The Supreme Commander towered over Krex, his forearms crossed in displeasure. "You lost 5 major warships to a species that had barely achieved space travel when you arrived. This is unacceptable. With respect, Supreme Commander, we severely underestimated them. Their history is unique among the species we have encountered. They have been fighting wars among themselves for thousands of years. Their technology always advances fastest during conflicts. So by attacking them, we accelerated their development beyond anything we've seen before," Krex admitted. "What would take other species centuries, they accomplished in months." The Supreme Commander's yellow eyes narrowed. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" Krex hesitated, knowing his next words could end his career or worse. "I believe we should withdraw from their system. The cost of conquering Earth now would be too high." The chamber fell silent. No Vargan admiral had ever recommended retreat before. "You realize what you're suggesting?" the Supreme Commander asked quietly. "I do. But I also believe that continuing this war would result in even greater losses. The humans are not like other species. With each defeat, they grow stronger. They learn. They adapt." On Earth, things had changed dramatically. Using captured and reverse-engineered Vargan technology, humans had advanced centuries in just 6 months. Cities were being rebuilt with new materials. Energy systems modeled after Vargan designs provided clean, nearly unlimited power. Medical technology had leaped forward, saving millions who would have died from injuries in the early attacks. General Hayes stood in the new United Earth Defense Headquarters in Geneva, addressing representatives from every nation. The room was filled with military leaders, scientists, and government officials, all working together in a way that would have seemed impossible before the invasion. "The Vargan fleet has pulled back beyond Mars," she announced. "Our long-range sensors show many of their ships have left the solar system entirely." "Are they retreating?" asked the Chinese representative. Dr. Miller, now the head of the Alien Technology Integration Division, stepped forward. "We don't think so. Not completely. Our intelligence suggests they're reconsidering their approach. They underestimated us, and it cost them dearly." "What happens now?" asked another representative. Colonel Russell, recently promoted to general himself, brought up a holographic display of Earth's new defense network. "We continue building our defenses. The shield technology we've developed based on Vargan designs now protects major cities. Our fleet of advanced fighters grows daily." "And if they return?" someone asked. "We'll be ready," General Hayes said firmly. "But there's something else we need to consider. We now have the technology to reach beyond our solar system. The question is, should we? Lieutenant Kim, now Commander Kim, after her role in multiple successful missions, sat with Major Carter in a cafe in the rebuilt section of New York. Through the window, they could see one of the new shield generators that now protected the city, its design clearly influenced by Vargan technology, but with human improvements. Hard to believe it's only been 6 months, Kim said, looking at the people walking by outside. Life was returning to normal, though forever changed. Remember when we thought we had no chance against them? Carter nodded. And now we've pushed them back. Not bad for a primitive species. Their conversation was interrupted by a breaking news alert on the cafe's display screen. The image showed a strange ship approaching Earth, its design unlike the Vargan vessels they had become familiar with. This just in, the news anchor announced. An unidentified ship has entered Earth orbit. Initial analysis indicates it is not Vargan in origin. The ship is broadcasting a message on all frequencies. Kim and Carter exchanged looks before rushing back to headquarters. In the command center, General Hayes, Dr. Miller, and other leaders were already gathered, watching. As the alien transmission was decoded, "Translation complete," announced a technician. "Putting it on screen now." The image that appeared showed a tall, slender being with iridescent skin and large, expressive eyes. When it spoke, its words were translated into text at the bottom of the screen. "People of Earth, I am Ambassador Zinthari of the Galactic Confederation. We have been observing your conflict with the Vargan Dominion with great interest. No species has ever successfully repelled a Vargan invasion before. We wish to establish diplomatic relations with your world." The room erupted in surprised conversations. Dr. Miller turned to General Hayes. "There are more advanced species out there? A confederation?" "Apparently so," Hayes replied. "And they've been watching us." The Zinthari ambassador continued. "The Vargan Dominion has been a disruptive force in our galaxy for centuries. Many worlds have fallen to them. Your resistance has shocked them deeply. News of your achievements has spread quickly through interstellar communications channels." Ambassador Perry, who had led the first face-to-face meeting with the Vargans months ago, stepped forward. "We should respond immediately. This could be a crucial opportunity for Earth." Within hours, a response was sent, and arrangements were made for the Zinthari ambassador to meet with Earth representatives. The meeting took place in the newly constructed United Earth Council chamber in Geneva, a building that showcased the blend of human creativity and advanced technology they had developed. Ambassador Perry led the Earth delegation. When the Zinthari entered, there was a moment of silence as humans and alien regarded each other with mutual curiosity. "Ambassador Zinthari," Perry began, "we welcome you to Earth and look forward to establishing relations with the Galactic Confederation." The Zinthari's translator converted their melodic speech into English. "The pleasure is mine, Ambassador Perry. Your world has accomplished something remarkable. There is a saying spreading among the stars now. You picked a fight with the most dangerous species in the galaxy." "We didn't choose this fight," Perry pointed out. "The Vargans attacked us without provocation." "Yes," the Zinthari agreed. "And that was their greatest mistake. Other species, when faced with superior technology, typically surrender or are quickly defeated. Humans did neither. Instead, you adapted, learned, and fought back. It is unprecedented." After the initial meeting, as Earth's leaders discussed next steps, Dr. Miller found herself standing with Commander Kim, looking out at the stars through a large window. "To think just 6 months ago we thought we were alone in the universe," Miller said. "Now we know there's a whole galactic community out there." "And they're watching us," Kim added. "We've caught their attention." "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" Miller wondered. On the Vargan homeworld, the Supreme Commander had made his decision. The fleet would be withdrawn from the Sol system. The cost of continuing the war with Earth was too high. "What about our reputation?" one council member asked. "We have never retreated before." "We will call it a strategic redeployment," the Supreme Commander said. "But make no mistake, we will be watching Earth closely. These humans are unlike any species we have encountered. Admiral Krex, surprisingly still in command despite his recommendation to retreat, nodded in agreement. They went from primitive space travel to defeating our advanced warships in 6 months. Imagine what they will become in 5 years or 50. As Earth began establishing relations with the Galactic Confederation and rebuilding from the war, humanity looked to the stars with new eyes. They had survived their first contact with an alien species not through luck, but through their unique ability to adapt, to learn, and to fight back against overwhelming odds. The Vargans had indeed picked a fight with the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and the galaxy would never be the same again.